Hello. My hair is wet. That's because I spent the last hour in the bath trying to massage away the pain of an ITB injury, IT band injury rather, which I got while riding last week. You don't have to actually come off a horse to injure yourself, you know. Staying on also can tear muscles and strain tendons and ligaments. Anyone who's got any hints about IT band repair, please tell me, because it's absolute agony and also quite debilitating, which means that yesterday, of course, you know, doing all the cooking for Christmas, you know, standing and stirring and stuff like that didn't help. But yesterday I got my first chance to settle down, and I actually, because I couldn't really move around too much, read the newspaper. And so this is Saturday's Telegraph, and there's a lovely article in there by Douglas Murray, the commentator du jour at this time. And he's talking about, I'll scan it and I'll put it up. Come here. No, hang on. There, that's right. It's all back to front, you see. Okay, I'll put it up there. It says here, the smarter Labour MPs are on a mission at the moment. Not a lecture tour, but a listening tour. Well, it's about time, isn't it? Just before Christmas, Lisa Nandy was in Ashfield, Nottinghamshire, to hear why people in this previously safe Labour seat had chosen to abandon her party and return a Conservative as their MP. Now, this is the first thing. Lisa Nandy was in Ashfield listening to her I don't know whether they were her constituents or they were constituents anyway in this constituency who had switched from voting Labour to voting Conservative. She was there just before Christmas. Why wasn't she there in November or October or September? No, she was in wherever Labour head office is, listening not to the constituents, but to Jeremy Corbyn et al. And that's not strictly her fault, because had she been in Ashfield listening to her constituents, she would have known, as some more prescient Labour MPs did know, she would have known there was going to be a problem. But when she took it back to Labour head office, nobody would have listened to her. As a matter of fact, she would have probably laid herself open to a lot of criticism, spite, and even ostracism. Because that's not what they wanted to hear, is it? They knew that their Labour heartlands were going to vote Labour for all eternity. They were absolutely 100% sure of that. And so if any Labour analyst or prospective MP or party worker had said to them that they were going to lose these constituencies, that the people were drifting away from them, that the people had serious concerns about them, they wouldn't have taken any notice of it. In fact, they would have regarded that as an insult to the Labour ideal. Oh, goodness me, I've just thought of something. All those of you who've read 1984 might remember, now I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something like this. Winston Smith writes in his diary at one point, if this regime is going to be overthrown, if this system is going to be overthrown, it will be the Proles. It will be from the proles, not from the party workers. He knew that wasn't going to happen. It will be from the proles now. And indeed, you could say that that's exactly what the people were who voted against Corbyn in this election. At least that's the Labour Party's view of them. They were the proles. The non-politically literate, non-politically included party, just ballot fodder. Isn't that interesting? Because that's exactly what happened, except Orwell was a bit pessimistic. He thought that the Labour Party would get in, or its equivalent, its fascist equivalent, would get in. But no, the proles, the people whom the Labour Party regarded as the proles, they got their defence in first, as the Americans used to say about Vietnam. Yep, well, there's George Orwell being right again. Anyway, let's see what this paper says again. Oh, I love this word. Psephologists. As various psephologists have pointed out since the election, not to sound patronising, but psephologist is somebody who studies elections. I suppose some of you, maybe most of you, would have known that anyway. Anyway, as various psephologists have pointed out since the election, there are two tectonic shifts that could fundamentally alter the British political landscape for the next generation. The first is if the Conservatives are able to hold and strengthen their present position of power by moving to the left on economics. Among other things, this will necessitate an increase in public spending. You know what? The New Deal in America, that was a big thing. It gave a lot of people work. It kick-started the American economy. Of course, there was a war shortly thereafter, and America, I am sorry to say, got a huge injection of cash by blackmailing the British government into paying huge amounts for those Liberty ships and other war materiel. British boats were sailing from all corners of the world loaded with silver and gold bars going to America. Did you know that? Those Liberty ships didn't come free, you know, and Britain was in debt up to here for years and years. In fact, I don't think they finished paying their debt until the 1990s. According to, Boris Johnson, he made the comment, was any country more honourable in the discharge of its debts than Britain has been with regard to America? I want you guys in America to remember that. But it's sort of interesting because although the situation is sort of different, the parallels are so strong. It's as if the same virus, the same germ of both to good and ill has gripped both of us in the United Kingdom and in America. It's just hit different weaknesses as diseases do. For instance, if you get flu and you have a heart problem, then flu will go for the heart. Whereas if you have breathing trouble, it'll go for your lungs, won't it? And that's what seems to have happened with this virus, whatever it is, with regard to democracy. So in America, you have people who don't accept the democratic agreement that the losers accept the government that's in. And it's happening here as well in a slightly different way. So he's saying that the Americans, that the Labour, that the Conservative Party should go a bit further left to mop up the left in the towns that it's taken during the election. Actually, I disagree with that. It's not a matter of going left, it's a matter of creating work. And here I'm talking about the New Deal. We have some hideous, horrendously expensive scheme called HS2, which is a fast rail going from London, I don't know, I think it's going through Birmingham and to Manchester. However, I think Boris Johnson was talking about having another one going to Leeds and then across the country as well, bisecting it. Getting, say, from Hull to Manchester is very difficult. It really is. And, there are motorways, but, a fast railway would be very useful. And building that would create a lot of work. And that, you don't have to go further left. You just have to make the jobs. Trump learnt that. And I think Boris Johnson is intelligent enough to learn from Trump. You create the jobs in the Rust Belt, and the Rust Belt ex-Democrats will vote Republican. Well, will vote for you anyway. Whether they'll vote Republican after Trump is another matter. But he's also talking about the patriotism of the British working classes. Now, I have mentioned this before. The upper classes and the working classes have the same sort of stubborn patriotism. And the Labour Party has forgotten about that. And even worse, the Labour Party has shown itself in many ways not to be patriotic. I'll go back to the grooming gangs, what I have referred to in another video as the slavers, who have enslaved white working class girls. Usually, not exclusively, by the way. Sikh girls have also been targeted, as far as I know, but the communities there tend to be a bit more quiet about what's going on. So the extent of the damage is not so well known. But the extent of the damage to white girls has been very well documented by now. It's still going on, by the way. But we know now that the Gordon Brown government, that is the successor to the Tony Blair Labour government, the Gordon Brown government, having heard about stories which were starting to bubble over into the Home Office, into various social and legal arms of the government. It came directly from Gordon Brown's office. I don't know whether Gordon Brown himself was responsible for it, but it certainly came out of the ethos that Gordon Brown had created on the basis of what Tony Blair had created. And that was, don't interfere with the rape of these girls. That's not our problem. These girls, some of them as young as 11, by the way, have made an informed choice, was the wording. Now, that is a direct attack against the British working classes. It's a direct attack against Britain. And it's taken the working classes, the Labour proles, a generation to come to terms with that, to realise that the Labour Party betrayed them. It took them a long time. Again, because they are loyal people. They give their loyalty to Britain. Many of them go into the army. And they gave their loyalty to a particular political party as well. And it took a lot to shake them. It took a lot to convince them that the Labour Party is not loyal to Britain and then, by extension, is not loyal to them. I just want to read this one little bit which I saw here. A new Telegraph newspaper, that's the one I'm reading here. A new Telegraph investigation this week has reminded us that such problems for the Labour Party, the problem of patriotism, do not start or end with Corbyn and Corbynism. Indeed, compromise of this kind has been something of a fixture in Labour Party history. As this paper reported yesterday, well, I only get the Saturday Telegraph, in the late 60s, senior Labour politicians, including a cabinet minister, you don't get much higher than that except for being a prime minister, passed information to communist spies. It's reported that Stan Orme, who served as a minister in the government of James Callaghan, met with agents of Czechoslovak intelligence on a monthly basis and passed on information about foreign policy decisions. Can you imagine that? Now, my suspicion is he didn't know that's what he was doing. That is, I don't know the circumstances, but I can quite easily imagine a situation where, for instance, the Czech embassy invites him for dinner once a week, in the interests of cultural or, social interaction and, hands across the water or across the Iron Curtain or whatever. And then during the course of these dinner conversations, he gets a bit boastful about what he knows and what he's doing. And they put two and two together. It could be something like that. It could be direct. Hey, guess what? This is what Callaghan is going to be doing next week in his discussions with the French Prime Minister or whatever. It could have been that, but it could just as easily have been the other way. Flattery and subterfuge. But whatever it was, he was giving away secrets. Other Labour MPs who were compromised included Dennis Hobden, the Labour MP for Brighton Kemp Town, and a former officer in the Union of Post Office Workers, and James Dickens, the Labour MP who led the Tribune group. That's a very influential sort of think tank type of group in 1968. Again, all of this fits a pattern. Only this past May it was claimed that, now this is interesting, although it's not proven, Geoffrey Robinson had passed secrets to Czech intelligence and was an asset of theirs during the Cold War. The former owner of the left-wing New Statesman magazine and paymaster under Tony Blair's government denies the charges. And then there's Michael Foot, who was actually the head of the Labour Party and in the running to be Prime Minister in the way that Corbyn was in the running to be Prime Minister. That is, not very much in the running, but that was the idea. While he was alive, the former Labour Party leader also strenuously denied accusations made by KGB defector Oleg Gordievsky. Oleg Gordievsky, was a KGB man, and he came to Britain and he started giving all sorts of secrets out. And he said that Foot himself had not only been giving information to the KGB, but had been paid for it. That's in another order. It's one thing if you're careless, stupid, self-aggrandizing and boastful and give away secrets over a bit too much vodka at dinner. It's another thing when somebody pays you for information, isn't it? Anyway, he denies that. But the fact, as Douglas Murray says, the fact that no one is particularly surprised by any of this says something about what we know about the Labour Party. And in the earlier cases, I'm sure it had to do with class. That is, the Labour Party didn't feel, these members did not feel like they were British so much as the proletariat, and they were fighting the toffs. And so, being the proletariat, they could make common cause with Czechoslovakia or Bulgaria or whatever it was, and they weren't actually being traitors. Most working class people wouldn't actually see it like that, although they chose to ignore it for many years. But everybody sort of knows. And the fact that the Labour Party ignored the rape crisis going on in many towns in Britain was another example of the way the Labour Party, in the interests of its idealism, was prepared to sell out the British people. So he finishes with, if the left is going to succeed in tacking to the right on culture. So he was saying that the right, the Conservatives have to go a bit left, but he's also saying that the left have to go a bit right. It will start with listening. And do you know what? This is what Douglas Murray says, that they'll have to listen. I don't believe they ever will. Because when you have idealism, you don't need to listen. You have that inner voice, don't you? Standing in the wreckage of his political party, Jeremy Corbyn, with the smoke and the dust rising around him and the rubble falling off the walls and the cracking of breaking glass under his feet, he was able to stand there, cough a bit, to clear the dust from his lungs and to say with a straight face, we won the argument. Can you imagine that? He actually said that. This is somebody whose head is so full of the noise of his own idealism that listening to anybody is pretty well impossible. Anyway, he says here, but he will finish with a few very simple but crucial acknowledgements that the nation state is the best guarantor of stability, not its enemy. Yep. That the public are better than politicians at recognising what change is tolerable and what is not. Yeah, I'll drink to that. Shame I don't have anything on the table to drink with. And that a quiet and solemn pride in your country is not some expression of extremism, but the best imaginable tool to ward it off. And that's right too. Will the Labour Party manage this shift? Murray asks. Nothing less than its future depends on it. And if it fails, well, we shall just have to find a way to struggle on without them. I still have hopes, although Nigel Farage's Brexit party didn't win any seats. I have hopes that his soon-to-be reconstituted Reform Party might take the place of the Labour Party. There are many things about the Reform Party, about his policies, that I actually disagree with. But at least I have hopes of an opposition, because at the moment it's not an opposition. There is no opposition. There was a James Bond, one of the James Bond stories, I don't know, a lot of it took place underwater. And at one point, James Bond is diving to the secret lair of the evil something or other, and a barracuda goes past him. And it's dangerous. But James Bond recognises in the barracuda a fellow killer and a worthy opponent. Anyway, it takes no interest in James Bond and goes on. Well, after James Bond has blown up the evil, whoever he was, is the evil world conqueror's lair underwater, he swims back out, and the barracuda has been caught in the blast, and it's had its brain fried with the concussion, and it's swimming erratically and snapping at its own tail. It's gone completely mad. And it's a very touching scene. And you see, and you really feel sorry for this monster of the deep who has been reduced to madly snapping at its own tail. And that's how I feel about the Labour Party, actually. Right. And that's all. Now, what I have noticed, my subscriber numbers are dropping. I haven't pissed anybody off, so it's YouTube playing ducks and drakes with us. I know a few other YouTubers are having the same problem. BitChute staying constant, going up slightly all the time, gradually. So I know I'm doing the right stuff. It's YouTube punishing the innocent. So please like, resubscribe, make sure your subscription is up to date, share, please share. And oh yes, I have to say, I was so touched and just very gladdened by all those wonderful Christmas wishes from all of you, one after the other. It was delightful. It was lovely. Best Christmas present ever. Well, actually, Brexit was best Christmas present ever, but it ran a pretty close second. And if it hadn't been for Brexit, it would have been the shining light in my year. Thank you very much all. And from me, a happy new year to all of you on YouTube and BitChute and Minds. And let's hope for a terrific 2020, and maybe something will come of Labour's listening, but if not, maybe we'll get another opposition party to keep some control over the Conservatives. But at the moment, I hope that they're going to follow through and repay the Labour Proles for their revolution, which has saved this country. Bye. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.